was working here for 6 months, cutting the stones by hand. All the little triangles that you see, this is not an emblem that was brought from the factory, but this guy was sitting here, a guy from Casablanca, from Morocco, cutting them piece by piece for 6 months. Unbelievable. I was like, this time for so many hours. Whatever you see here, all the colorful stones, one by one, 6 months.
Something new was big.
Yes. So who thinks what is going on? So we get to this. Welcome to the second Jewish neighborhood outside the walls. If you guys look at the map that I sent you, you can see that this is Machane Israel. This is the name of this neighborhood, Machane Israel. It was built in 1865. Only 5 years after the establishment of Mishkenot Chanani. But unlike Mishkenot Chanani, this neighborhood was not built by one person, by a donor that kicked the Jews outside, but a community. The Jewish community, which you can see their center right here, it says, it's in French, let's read it. In Hebrew, this is the global center of the communities of North Africa, which means Moroccans, Jews from Algeria, Tunisia, etc. All are connected here because they were the denomination that built this neighborhood, which was called the Mughrabi Jews. It's exactly the same word for Arabs who the Muslims who came from northern Africa, right? Why Mughrabi? Because it's from the Maghreb, from the west. Right? If you were in Jerusalem, I'm saying this because later on all the Ashkenazis would call them Mizrahim, right? Well, not so Mizrahim. I remember when I was in a tour guiding course, like, it was in the beginning here, I assume. I remember the tour guide not even going in here. I know it didn't, because as you can see here, it was a very lame courtyard with lots of pebbles and dirt and stuff. But still, I mean, it is a historical place, right? We didn't even enter this area. We just didn't know. He was outside, we stopped, and we were right after Mishkenot Chanani, and he said, we are now passing by the second neighborhood that isn't, it's not really important, it's just a little Moroccan few houses, there's nothing to see. Let's move on to the third neighborhood of Nachlat Shiva. That's what we knew. And I gotta tell you, whenever I got here and I asked people who are familiar with the history of fashion, I say, let's try this. Who's heard of Mishkenot Chanani before today? Come on, we're doing Mishkenot Chanani. Or so who heard of Nachlat Shiva? Nachlat Shiva, obviously, for some reason. Who heard of, who knew about Machane Israel? Nobody. What happened to Machane Israel? How come nobody knows about it? So at first, as I said, we were told that it was a very tiny neighborhood, which nothing really was built here, just a few houses, right? Just not really a neighborhood of people. So I will show you a map of this neighborhood in 15 years. This was the neighborhood started in 1965 until 15 years later. What you see here, the black building, was the first building that was bought with the land. The house belonged to a Christian. We don't have much of information about him, and we know from the sources that his name was Uri. I'm not even sure if it's the first or last name. So they bought the house, and in the map where this house appears is Charles Wilson map from 1864. So how come we say that the neighborhood was built in 1865? It's because it's not a neighborhood yet, just this house. All the darker houses that you see were built right away after, and the rest in red are at the end of this period of time of 15 years. So, definitely not a small neighborhood. What we're looking at, we're sitting in this triangle courtyard right here. So we are at the bottom of the narrow part, you see it opens up. And take a look at this building on my map. This is the building that you see right behind my back. That one with the red roof. Okay, so it can tell you exactly where we are. Also note that there was a cistern right where we were sitting. So it's not nearly 1,000 years to emphasize the fact that there was a similar cistern right here. So we don't even see here yet the rest of the houses, which we're going to go walk through. on our way out, just for you to see that it's definitely not just a little Moroccan neighborhood, outside the walls. So why was it forgotten?
PR.
Exactly, PR. I found out, and I read a lot of sources. I went to a research, so not just guiding for me. And I found out that whatever the Ashkenazi Jews did in Jerusalem, they built and then they wrote about it. And then they wrote a book. They wrote in the newspapers. They wrote letters to their friends abroad. It's written all over the place. So there's a lot of documents about the Ashkenazi establishments in Jerusalem. But the Moroccans were not so much into talking about what they did. They just built. Okay? So we're talking about the small community, not so rich, which left the old city by themselves, taking their own money, not only the clothes, their own money, donations that they got. They bought a rather lame piece of land. I have to tell you, this is definitely not a fun place to be in because it's very, very close to a cemetery, a cemetery which we're going to see. And as you can see, the angles are going into a valley. Closer to the south, but you actually start here. And they say that there was a huge swamp here, like a pond. It became a swamp every winter. Lots of flies and malaria and stuff like that. It was not fun. Why did they buy this piece of land? Because they were poor and they didn't have enough money to buy anything else. All right? So they were very into the building, the creating, the establishing, not to writing. That's what made the Ashkenazis later on, when they wrote the history of Jerusalem, just not mention Machane Israel. I read so many books about the history of the new neighborhoods outside the walls of Jerusalem, and they're all count Ashkenaz Shananim, and then right away, Achlat Shiva. What about Machane Israel? Again, just a few houses. Who cares, right? So I'm very, very happy to have some, what we call tzedek history, right? And mention these people, the pioneers, the real pioneers who built their own neighborhood. So you're saying, Yofi, Azma, what are you moaning now about this? I am moaning, not only because I'm married to a Moroccan, and whenever I'm here, I can feel a breach so upset about this erasing this piece of history, but also because it's not enough to say, oh, see, so now we are familiar with the story, now everything is going to be okay. It's not. Because the fact that most of the houses of the neighborhood have been demolished is because of that. I mean, come on, they're not original. What's going on? All these apartments, most of the shutters are closed because it's the same story what we talked about when we were in the Ashkenaz Shananim. These are hotels, apartment hotels, which people rent or sometimes buy, and they don't even live here. Okay, this is definitely not the neighborhood. What happened here? Nobody cared about this neighborhood. And in the 70s, after Jerusalem was united and a lot of money was brought into Jerusalem to develop it, lots of pieces of this neighborhood were demolished because of that. Because nobody thought it was an important place. Nobody thought it was a historical neighborhood. So, Yoki, Baruch Hashem, we managed to save some of them. So, for example, in the home for the elders, is that what they call it? Shabbos, right? Well, the house of where all the old people. Old age room. Home. Okay. The old age home was right here. All you can see, nothing is left out of it, just the facade, and became the lobby of that house, of the new hotel. So we have a little bit of this here, but nothing left there. And actually, almost half of the neighborhood was demolished by this. So we managed to save a little of the rest. And as you can see, there's nothing too long because this neighborhood is beautiful. I mean, look how much money was put in developing this. I gotta tell you that I would be very happy if you wouldn't have to sit on the floor. I mean, how come there are no benches here, right? What if there's a sun, a strong sun in the middle of the noon, or raining? How come there's no coverage? Because the people who put the money in order to make such a beautiful courtyard are the people who own these projects, and they were forced by the municipality of Jerusalem after, okay, we already sold you the land. There are lots of people that are against destroying and demolishing the houses, but we're forced to use the place, and you're going to do this. So your way to give back to the community is by making this. lights, and we are here to enjoy this, I would expect to have these benches. And we talked to them a few times, and they said, no, we don't want it really, the way it looks. What they really want is the people who buy or rent the apartments up there to have a nice, courtyard in the back. It's not really. I think there's still a way to go in order to really preserve something. But after learning about this, I want to say there is something that did happen and did some kind of a victory that we did have here, and that has to do with the house with the red roof. A house started as the synagogue of the neighborhood. All right, actually the third synagogue outside the walls. Right? Because we have the Ashkenazi Sephardi and Mishkenot Shananim, and this is a Moroccan synagogue, the third outside the walls. Later on, it was also used as a Talmud Torah, which is a religious school for boys. And later on, during the British Mandate period, when all the riots started, people who lived here were very afraid, started to run away, and deserted the houses. Some of them sold their houses to Arab Christian families. And a Christian family moved into this house. They lived here for many, many years. And in 1948, when they ran away, because remember this was the western side, the Jewish part of Jerusalem, the municipality of Jerusalem took over the house, and it turned to be a school. For many years it was a school until not very long ago when the hotel, you see there in the back, is the hotel, which of course goes very nicely, with